Hey guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for listening to our content, and please like and subscribe. Before we get to the podcast, if you have middle school or high school kids that play sports and you don't want to fundraise like me, we got you covered. My buddy Chris Carneal owns Booster. Chris?
We help schools and sports teams raise funds in a super fun and engaging way. In fact, the last 22 years, we've raised $750 million, and we can't wait to help you. Choose booster.com.
All right, well, welcome to the Pure Athlete Show, where we're talking all things youth sports. And sitting here with Jeff and with Brad, and we've got just a great show today. Got a special guest here that I'm excited about having, Brad. In fact, Brad, why don't you start off and tell us a little bit about this guest?
His nickname is Frenchie. He's the legend of Mountain Park, Lilburn, Georgia. I remember hearing about his exploits at Parkview High School, and then obviously became just a legend in Atlanta for playing for the Braves on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and had a great career in the MLB, and is now have a fantastic second career as a broadcaster on television for baseball.
Yeah, and I pick up on that a little bit just to maybe hit some of Jeff's highlights. He had an 11-year career in the Bigs, which is, that's a great career. Played for a number of teams. We came up with the Braves. Hometown boy. Was on the cover of Sports Illustrated in 2005, labeled The Natural, and which was a pretty exciting time. I was just a young kid then watching Jeff.
You got to be pretty good to be labeled The Natural, I mean, that's a pretty big distinction right there.
No doubt.
I'm going to bring y'all with me when I do an introduction. This is great.
Just to kind of go on, because there's more. Jeff won a Gold Glove as a right fielder, and he really was known for just having a great arm, and you can even see some of his throws on YouTube if you want to go and search that. Rookie of the Year, third runner-up for Rookie of the Year, played in the World Series. We can ask a little bit about that. Probably the best thing he's done was marry Katie, and together they have 4 kids, which we'll hear a little bit about as well. But Jeff, welcome to the show. Jeff's part of Pure Athlete, part of our whole organization, a big part of it. But today we wanted you to hear his story. So with that, Jeff, welcome. And tell us a little bit about what you're doing now.
Well, I'm excited, guys. Thanks. Well, obviously, besides being involved with you two, I do announcing for the Braves Valley Sports. I do about 90 to 100 games, and then I do some Tuesday night TBS games and the playoffs with them, which is the perfect amount for me. It keeps me involved, still in baseball and stuff, but I don't have to be at the field at 1:30 like I used to. And, I go home after the games. I pull like heck for the Braves to win. But if they do lose, I just want it to be in under 3 hours so I can get home. And then, I have 4 kids. I coach my daughter and sons. My daughter's travel team, and my son plays t-ball. And then the other ones, we're golfing, raising them. My 2 youngest are like 2 and 4 too. So we're kind of all over the place when it comes to that, but it's been great to stay in the community of Atlanta. I was born and raised here and got a chance to play here. And so when we were done, it was kind of no coincidence that we stayed here in the community and are very involved. It's been a good – I play a lot of golf too, and I've
Pretty
tried,
good golf.
I have been, yeah. I've tried to qualify for some of the amateur tournaments and realized that I haven't quite been able to relax enough yet. The pressure in front of 50 people for some reason on a golf course gets me more than when I played in front of 50,000 people in the World Series. But everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses, right?
Yeah. Well, you just brought up something I want to ask you. And most of our time today is going to be talking about your youth sports experience. But you just mentioned playing in the World Series.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the people who are watching are baseball fans. And I'd just like to hear a little bit, give us an insider view of what it's like to play in the World Series.
Man, it was incredible. It was a whirlwind because we played the Giants. I was with the Texas Rangers at the time. And actually, Ron Washington was our manager, who's the third base coach now for the Atlanta Braves. But you got your whole family, all your friends. I mean, everybody came out to Texas. I think I had 22 people there, my high school coaches, a couple of them, a bunch of my good buddies. So it was so much fun because you were able to celebrate it with them, what you're going on. Part stunk. We lost in 5 games to the San Francisco Giants. But with that being said, to be able to be out there, both President Bushes were there for Game 4 throughout the first pitch. Nolan Ryan throughout the first pitch for Game 3. So, it was an experience that you'll never forget. And I remember my dad really, which we're going to touch on quite a bit, the impact he had on me. But that was like kind of the first time I really saw him kind of just take a step back and just enjoy everything. No matter what I did in the World Series, just kind of like the fact that my son's playing in the World Series, like,
that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
You know what I'm saying? Not that he would have loved me any different, because I had an older brother and older sister, and he treated us all the exact same, no matter what we did in sports. But I think for him, it was kind of like all that work that we did. He was a proud dad.
Now you shared with us a trick your dad used to play on you. He'd sneak into town and get in right field. What would he say to you?
He'd say, "Francoeur, you suck."
So he didn't do that for the World Series.
He did not do that for the World Series. He did not sneak in town.
I'm glad he was respectful of that.
It was always great. He would surprise me in one town a year, and he'd be in right field. He'd buy his own tickets, and it was great. We'd hang out for the weekend, and just a dad watching his son play ball.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I do want to get into youth sports a little bit. And, the way we always like to start in the youth sports story, and I want you to tell your story, but I want to start off with just asking you, as you think back on your youth sports experience, can you think of one moment that kind of stands out that was just a great moment that you had in youth sports?
Yeah, I think back for so many different sports that I loved. I played basketball, baseball, football. I golfed when I was a kid, played tennis. I mean, I was literally doing everything. Probably one of my coolest moments, though, was playing football and coming up in Mountain Park. I played when I was 7 years old, 7 through 7th grade, and we used to get pounded. I mean, we were one of the only teams in the county that didn't stack a team. So we had 2 teams, and we'd literally split it dead even. So you'd have a quarterback here, quarterback there, instead of stacking teams. So we would get pounded. We'd literally go 2-7 every year. And then we all went to 8th grade, and they finally put an A team and a B team. And all of a sudden, all of us came on the A team, and we started waxing these teams. And let me tell you, it was the greatest feeling because Norcross and all these schools had ran us through the ground, and all of a sudden we were beating them 28-0, 28-10, and we were like, man, we're pretty good. But I would always appreciate that, because I said, I think, sometimes you stack a team at a young age, an A and B team, a lot of those kids are going to quit. Or they're not going to play. And I think this way a lot of guys developed, and a lot of guys in 4th grade that probably didn't have a lot of talent then, that all of a sudden in 8th grade they might have grew into huge linemen, might not have ever had that. So that was one of my cool moments.
That's awesome. Well, I know that you won 2 state championships in football at Parkview, and 2 state championships in baseball as well. And we know you went on to a professional baseball career. But let's back all the way up. You just mentioned you played a whole bunch of different sports. So can you kind of take us through the evolution of you playing all these sports, and eventually you wound up with football and baseball, and then eventually baseball? Can you take us through that journey a little bit?
Well, first of all, my mom and dad were both educators. My mom was a teacher. My dad was in the front office with the Cobb County school system. So first thing was first for me growing up. If I lied about a test grade or I didn't do something, I was yanked. And so I learned because my dad realized spankings, taking TV away, I could care less. But you take a game away from me, that was heartbreaking. So, I grew up always disciplined from the beginning, from the standpoint. But, we'd play it, man. We'd play basketball during the winter, baseball during the spring, golf, during the summer. Like any kids, we'd play just around the neighborhood stuff, and I'd play football in the fall. So I had a great childhood. In the fact, I had an older brother 4 years older than me, an older sister 3 years. And then I was the baby of the family. So it was always kind of nice for me, because I was trying to keep up with them all the time. So
did they play sports?
They did. Oh, yeah. They played them all, too. So I'm out with their friends playing all the time. I'm 6, 7 years old. My brother's 11. I'm just getting beat up under the net playing basketball. But I'll tell you what, as my mom and dad would tell me, it made me tougher and tougher and tougher. And, so I always appreciated that. But, I started playing travel baseball when I was 10. That was kind of the first start of travel baseball. Travel baseball wasn't
as big back then, yeah.
But, it got to the point where we were playing 16 games in the park, and I wanted more. I loved playing, and so we went to travel baseball. Played football every fall. And one thing I always appreciated was my dad, when summer got done with baseball, we were done. There was I wasn't going to play baseball in the fall when football was going on. Then I was all in football. So July 1st through about July 10th was my mom's 10 days that we went to the beach. So it did not matter what we had. And even when I got to high school, my mom was like, those 10 days are my days. And we go to the beach. And I always appreciated that because it was great to have family time, and really, really enjoy that. But I had a great experience. I grew up in Mountain Park. I had a lot of friends. We all played together. And the parents were great. They made it fun, honestly. They were, it was competitive for sure, but it wasn't over the top crazy, of what you hear these days. So I was very fortunate in the area I grew up that the parent involvement was second to none. And when I went to Parkview, it was the same way. I mean, the parents were always there supporting, helping. And, so I was very fortunate in that fact.
Jeff, when did you realize that you had a gift, an athletic gift? Like, how old were you? Is there a certain story that you remember that you kind of said, I'm pretty good at this. I think I'm going to continue to do this.
I knew I was always a good athlete. You put me on any of the fields, courts, I always held my own and could stand out in certain things. But I truly do say, when I really knew that I had a chance to become a big league baseball player, which was my dream. I loved football, I loved basketball, but baseball had always been my number one sport. And my dad's from outside Boston, so he was a huge Red Sox fan. So I had to grow up watching Red Sox baseball too, with the Braves. But baseball was always my first love. And so I was 16, about to turn 17 years old, and I played on the U.S. Junior National team. The trials were in Joplin, Missouri. It's in Cary, North Carolina now because they do all that there. But I went up there, and some guys that were drafted in the first round were actually there that year. They hadn't signed yet. A couple of them went to college. And all of a sudden, I made the team. We went to Cuba for 3 weeks, which was probably one of the coolest experiences of my life, playing baseball down there. Actually, the championship game, Fidel Castro was right behind us in the first row. A little bit intimidating, I'm not going to lie to you. You're kind of like, man, I hope I don't hit a home run here. But I played on this team, and I ended up hitting like 500 and made the all-tournament team, and I started thinking, these are the best players in the country, and here I am holding my own. And honestly, that's when I thought. But I do. I get parents now that ask me all the time, like at 12 years old, I knew I was good, but I didn't know how I stacked up against everybody else in the the country. Now they got all these rankings, and I'm like, ain't no way at 11 years old who the best 11-year-old, because I guarantee there's an 11-year-old out there that ain't playing in these things. Right. So that was the great thing. My parents always protected me and letting me enjoy playing sports and really, the pure fun of it.
So even after you realized that you could be pretty special in baseball, you still played football though, right? Oh
gosh, yes. I actually, to this day, I'm not going to say the name, but there was a coach that came over my junior year and watched a football game. And at Parkview, all the parents would sit there kind of in the 40, 50. Well, my dad wanted nothing to do with any of the parents during the game. He sat down at the 10-yard line and he wanted to be locked in and focused, which I appreciate because I do the same with my kids now. They're out there playing. I want to talk to everybody. And this coach came over and basically was telling my dad that he was an idiot for letting me play football. This is my junior year in high school. And my dad pretty much told him to mind his own business. And, he said at that moment, I think I was out there like headbutting one of my teammates right before the game. And my dad was like, I would never take that away from my son. Yeah. These moments he's having with his best friends. And, so I never gave 1 second. My whole thing was, man, if I got hurt and something happened, then God's got a different plan or it's going, but I'm not playing.
That's a great perspective.
And I played basketball all the way through my freshman year. I actually played on the JV team, dressed in varsity. And that was a hard decision because I played basketball my whole life and loved it. But I knew at that point, at Parkview, football and baseball were so good that it really took up the full time of the 2 seasons. So it ended up being a great switch for me between those two.
Tell me a little bit more about your dad and your mom and their role in that whole time of your life.
Yeah, well, like I said, they were both educators, so they were a great support staff. My mom logged me more places. When I started playing travel ball at 10, we played out of Chamblee, then at 11, Moores Mill, and there weren't a lot of travel ball. So when we were playing these teams, we'd have to go to South Carolina and Tennessee, Panama City, We played in the CABA World Series up in Aurelia, Iowa. I remember one time, and we were up there for like 12 days. But, I mean, my parents were awesome. They took me there. I knew it cost a lot of money, I'm sure.
I was going to say, they're educators,
They're
so they're not
educators. They're-
loaded with money.
No. But they made sure we had exactly what we needed, and we would go up and we'd play. And, like I said, their big thing, like anything, was I talked about the World Series and my dad having fun, but, there's still some of their favorite moments are watching me from Little League.
Yep.
And, the good moments, the bad moments, because like anything, you'd have bad moments. I remember, and gosh, I think I was 9 or 10 years old, and we were playing basketball at Mountain Park, and we were in the playoffs, and I yelled at a referee, told him he stunk. After the game, we got knocked out, and my dad wasn't there. He was with my brother or sister doing something, so we got home, and my mom told him. Well, of course, my dad put me back in his car. We drove back up to the place, and we had to wait until halftime, and I had to go out there and apologize to that ref.
That's a
and
great
I mean, you
story.
talk about embarrassing, humbling, like
Lesson learned.
yeah. I still told my dad to this day though, I'm like, he did stink. He called some bad fouls.
He was wrong.
But that's a moment now that I think, man, you know what? If my kids ever did that, we're doing the exact same thing. And so, I was lucky. I had great parents that grew up playing sports, both my mom and dad, so they knew how much it meant to me.
Yeah. So as you think back on that, and obviously you're super talented and had skills that y'all just talked about,
Yeah.
that you kind of saw at an early age. I'm sure your parents saw, but we talk a lot about these 5 pillars, and what areas did you struggle in? Did you have any struggles as a young athlete?
I would think probably the biggest, I had grit. I'll tell you that. Like, I never shied away from anything. I think like anything, probably for me growing up, it was, trying to please everybody. Honestly, I go back, and even when I got to the big leagues, man, if I could have learned to say no, that word would have helped me so much. And not in a bad way, but just doing that. And my dad, you talk about character. My dad always taught me, great lessons along the way too. I remember when I was 12 years old, and this is a great lesson I always talk about with travel ball. We played on a team, and I was probably the second best player on the team. We had 12 guys, but all these dads were coaching, and all these dads were helping. And we were spending money every weekend going different places. We were in Savannah, Georgia. And finally, I was hitting like 9th or 10th in the lineup. And I was mad. I mean, I was hitting great doing this. And finally, after the first game down there, I think they even dropped me to 11th, maybe out of 12. And my dad finally just said, pack your stuff, we're out of here. And this was in May when I was 12 years old. And I quit baseball that whole summer. All of them kept playing travel ball. I went and played on the Atlanta Junior Golf Association, which I realized that golf, I was not composed enough to play golf. But I always appreciate it because that was my dad taking the lead on that and saying, you know what, we are not doing this. This isn't healthy for you. It's a waste of our time. And that was my dad's decision because, my dad taught me you never quit on anything. And as he told me, he said, this is my decision. This is not you quitting. This is being treated unfair. And so I always appreciated that my dad took the lead on that and kind of said, this isn't healthy.
See, I think that's an awesome thing because, I mean, I'm sure your dad saw, even at that age, this kid could be somewhere.
Yeah, and I can't see. I mean, I saw it. I knew I was 12. I wasn't happy I was batting, but I didn't see the big picture where my dad's like, you know what, we ain't doing this.
Yeah. But I think a lot of parents would see the big picture today and think, I can't take my kid out.
Yeah.
Because it's going to impact the long term, them getting where I want them to get.
Yeah, and if anything, it was great. I played golf that whole summer.
Yeah.
I literally did not play baseball when I was 12 all summer. And then I played football and then I got back at 13. Instead of going to all these other travel teams that were all around the area, I ended up playing with a travel team with my high school buddies.
Yeah.
We went to tournaments and we got drummed. I mean, we did. But I was playing with all my best friends, the guys that I ended up playing with at Parkview, and we were so successful, won 2 state championships. But I always appreciate it because I was playing with my friends. And it's something I am right now with my daughter's travel team. She's playing with all her friends. We're not going all over the place.
You talk about, part of, I think, extending your kid's athletic journey is giving them the opportunity to keep loving the sport.
Yeah.
And your dad did a great job of that, of pulling you out of the sport, but then putting you on a less competitive team, though, that you had a better time. And you never know if you would continue to play in that travel experience or that environment, who knows? You may have just chosen football at that point, because you're like,
absolutely right.
I'm not enjoying this sport anymore.
Yeah, and that's a great thing. My parents, they pushed me to play all the sports, play everything. I played tennis, I played golf, and like I said, until after my freshman year, and that's when me and my dad sat down. We're kind of like, man, we got to cut one now. Like it's not at the highest level, Parkview. It was kind of like it's just tough to do this and be good at all three.
Yep.
And
Talk about that. I mean, because I think that's something that, many parents that are listening today will get to a point
yeah.
where, they have to have that conversation with the kid. Did your dad initiate that? Did you
Yeah,
initiate it?
my dad did. He sat down and kind of said, look, it was after the summer, my freshman year. I played varsity as a freshman for baseball, which was tough at Parkview. I was only the second one to ever do it. Jeff Keppinger was the other one who went on to play in the big leagues, and did really well. And then that summer we had football training. I started as a sophomore, so I knew I was going to start as a sophomore. But basketball had the summer stuff, and they were going to like a camp and stuff, and it was just getting to where I wanted to be at football and I wanted to be at baseball and that other little basketball, which I loved playing, but I knew it was my third sport. And, so my dad finally sat down. He's like, I think it's time, and I remember still this day, because like I said, the word no, I called the high school basketball coach, man, I cried like a baby on the phone telling him that, I can't play. I'm not playing anymore. And it was tough. He was not happy with me for sure, but it's so great because as time went on, we're still actually to this day keep in touch. And as he said, he's like, I think you made the right decision, but that's where your parents, and us now as parents can look out for your kids. Because I probably wouldn't have walked away. I probably would have just kept going. And my parents knew
It's time.
you gotta choose one.
It's rare that a high school coach is going to give up a good athlete,
Yeah, they don't
and
want to.
and even if they have the best intentions, they're very myopic on their sport, and they, even if they've had the conversation with the parents about, hey, this is his first sport, they're thinking about their team, and they're not intentionally telling that kid, oh, you've got to be at every practice, you got to be at every summer workout. But it's implied in a sense, and they're not thinking
for sure.
intentionally about, I need to make sure this kid who plays baseball or basketball also gets some time with them. And so the parent has to come in and say, hey, this is what my kid's going to do.
Yeah.
If you want my kid to be a part of your team, he's going to have to be allowed a little bit of, flexibility to play these other sports, because the coaches, they just don't, they're coaching that one sport, and it's not that they're trying to think unhealthy for the kid, but
all they see is their
exactly,
sport. And I remember the greatest decision I made was I came back from Cuba playing that USA team, and I was supposed to be gone. I was home for like a week, and I was supposed to be gone for 2 more weeks. And I was going to like an East Coast showcase, a couple other things. And me and my dad kind of sat down. We're like, man, I showed everything I need to show this summer. Like, they know what I can do. And I was going to miss 2-a-days for 2 weeks with football. And of course, the football coaches were like, we get it. You got to do it. And I would have came back and stepped right in and played. But the greatest decision I made was I decided not to go to the baseball thing. And I went to 2-a-days. I died. I sweated. I lost 10 pounds. But my buddies to this day always tell me that was the coolest thing because I stuck through with them, And like I said, that was cool because as the season got going, it wasn't like they could say, hey, he skipped the hard part. I was with him every step of the way.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about, as you got to, sophomore, junior, I don't know when it started, but talk a little bit about the recruiting process and how that went into the draft. And I know you had a scholarship offer from Clemson for football. So tell us a little bit about that process.
Well, it's crazy how much now in 20 years it has just gone crazy. Guys are signing now as freshmen in high school. And I'm like, what how do they even know you're good, But, I always said, me and my dad made the choice that when I went through the recruiting process, once I choose a school, we're choosing that school. We're not visiting any other schools. You give them your word, you're done. So for me, it was – baseball had always been my first love. But when you start getting notes from Bobby Bowden and Joe Paterno and Lou Holtz, it's kind of like, man, this is pretty cool, And you go out to your mailbox and you got 20 letters and it's like Notre Dame, A&M, it's awesome. You see the stories, but then when you start to live it, it's pretty overwhelming. And so, I chose Clemson, which was great. Tommy Bowden was there, and Tommy was awesome. He wanted me to play football, and then he said, when football's done, go play baseball. And there wasn't a lot of coaches that allowed. And Tommy was one that he said, I watched my dad do it with Bobby, and he got a lot of great athletes because he allowed them to do it. And, Tommy said, now, if your grades suffer, if this and that, then we're going to have to talk. But he said, if everything's right, go do it. And then as I got doing baseball into my senior year, and the scouts started showing up, and they're at the games. And, I remember when Brian McCann, one of my best friends, went to Duluth. We both actually were first and second round pick with the Braves when we played. There was like 150 scouts there. It was insane.
Gosh.
And I remember
at the little Duluth baseball stadium there.
Yep. And I remember thinking, you know what, like baseball is what I want to do. Yeah. And, I still had the football in the back pocket, but eventually, baseball's the route I wanted to go.
Yeah. How was that call with Tommy Bowden?
It was awesome. Actually, Tommy said, if you don't sign, I'm going to call you an idiot. I mean, honestly, because he knew the potential I had. And actually, I still see him to this day. We have a place down on the Panhandle, and Tommy's got one down there, and we see him, and we still joke because he's like, I would expect you not to come here.
Right.
That's
pretty cool.
Did you, in that Duluth High School, game where all those scouts were at, did you feel pressure?
Oh, gosh, yeah, man. Let me tell you, the first 10 games my senior year, I didn't hit a home run. I mean, I was bad. And, all the scouts would be down in the cages, and, all my buddies would try to do stuff to loosen me up. I had one buddy actually hit me in the ribs while we were throwing just because he was trying to loosen me up, but it did. I felt the pressure, and that's a perfect example. My dad was spot on pretty much my whole career. Well, my dad in baseball, just like he did in football, always sat down the right field line. I played center field. In the first 5 or 6 games my senior, he sat right behind home plate. And he wanted to hear what all the scouts were saying and everything. I'll never forget one of the games I popped up, and I'm running back behind, and I hear, keep your shoulder up. And I blew a gasket. I got home that night, me and my pops went at it, man. We were screaming at each other. My mom was crying, and I was telling my dad, leave me alone. I just want to play with my friends. And I just realized that it just emotionally had worn me out. And then I had the best high school coach, Coach Buchanan, who coached at Parkview forever. And we were actually on a road trip during spring break. And he came in one night and just, I cried to him and we talked for an hour. And he could sense I was feeling the pressure. And so we had a great talk, and just said, look, I got to get back to doing what I'm, have always done, and that's have fun and play. And I think the next day I hit a home run, and then I hit 2, and it was just I went off after that. But I felt it, man. There's no doubt when that many people are there, you can feel it coming in. And like I said, I think it was a great lesson for my dad, because that's when I needed my dad to kind of be that guy that you could go to. In those first 5-6 games, he wasn't.
Yeah.
So, and it was your senior year, the state championship game that kind of has gone down in history of high school sports. Tell us a little bit about kind of what happened in that series, because that's I don't think that's been duplicated since then.
You know what? I've been blessed to do a lot of great things. That 2-game series at Lasser High School was I was 6 for 7 with 4 home runs. 13 RBIs, and then I pitched the 6th and 7th inning of both games and got the win. And it was so nice because they had all these people in center field, the Lassiter fans just heckling me. And it was like every time I got up there, just bomb. and by the end, actually, they were all kind of like this. It's actually funny because I joked with them, but it was a magical ending to my high school career. Like it was.
It's even more special that the way you started that senior year and struggling and be able to.
It was, man, and I remember there were a bunch of scouting directors there, some GM. So after that game, I had a good idea that I was going in the first round. I'd be playing baseball.
Yeah, that's really neat.
Going back to your dad, did your dad, did he coach you?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about.
So my dad knew nothing about basketball, so he never coached me in basketball. He would just come watch me play, and in football, he never coached me. He didn't know much about football, but he was there every practice and got to know enough about the sport. But he coached me in baseball for a long time. But again, what I'm so glad that my mom and dad both did was they treated my brother and my sister the same exact way. They played sports, obviously not at the level I did, but it was just as important to my parents. And so, there were seasons that my dad didn't coach me because he was going to coach my sister, coach my brother, and switch it off. And, I always appreciate it because now with my own kids, I do the same thing. Like, just because my daughter's older and she's playing travel ball, I still coach my son's t-ball team. And there's days that I won't be at my daughter's stuff because I'm at my son's stuff. And so, my parents were so good with that on coaching me. But, my dad always, he never pushed. He pushed me in a good way, But like we'd get home from church and have brunch on Sunday, and then it was like, hey, let's go to the cage. And I would ask my dad that, and so he'd pile us in his car and we'd go up the cage and he'd throw to me for an hour, and I loved it. I loved the grind of it. My brother ended up getting into golf and loved it. And so it was great for him and it was a good fit. But, my dad, he always said, look, if you're going to do it, we're going to work at it. You can be the best you can be at it. And then if you get done, you don't want to do it, no problem. But in the moment, you're going to work.
So now as a dad, do you think there's a certain sport that you are going to struggle the most coaching your kids, or like, is it baseball?
I think it's baseball because, and we've talked about this with a lot of the guys that I've played in the big leagues with and played for a long time and had success. You talk about these little things with your kids that seem to come simple to you. And I'm like, how do they not understand that? For instance, my daughter, has struggled with getting started on time. And so she hits the ball hard, but a lot of it's that way. And I'm like, do you not see this, And so it's good. My wife checks me at the door sometimes with it. Like you gotta, and even the other coaches I coach with, hey, relax, and I think about that. My dad, now that I think back, gave me room to grow, room to fail, room to see if I could turn it around on my own, if I knew kind of what I was doing. And so those are all things that I can't wait to share with my kids too.
Yeah. My son played 3 sports. My younger son played 3 sports. And I know a little bit about football and basketball because my dad was a football coach and I played basketball, and he's chosen baseball as his sport. And I really think a lot of it's because I really have nothing to add to. He's surpassed me after playing for 12 years now. There's nothing I can add in anything other than, hopefully support. But I think that was kind of the case. I think he's like, this is the one sport my dad can't give me any advice in. So, but I can really, for me, it's great because I can just sit and enjoy it.
Yeah.
As a fan and as a father. But I was interested because you played them all, so it'd be maybe. But baseball probably, I guess, would be hardest for you maybe to sit back
so.
and
so.
You know a lot. I mean, you want to let them know.
That's the thing,
So, Jeff, one of the things we're trying to do in all these interviews is we have 5 questions
Yeah.
that we want to ask. And we've already asked you one of them, which is what's the best moment in youth sports? I want to ask you the opposite of that. Is there a moment that stands out that was the toughest moment in youth sports? Is there a memory?
Oh, gosh, yeah, man. This is the moment my mom said she knew that I was on another level of being competitive. I was legitimately 6 years old. And I was on the Yankees at Mountain Park, the T-ball Yankees, and we were 17-0, and we wreck shopped the whole year. I mean, we were, and I was hitting bombs out of the park, not off the tee, not off anything, just dropping bombs, and we were up we were down 24-23 in the last inning.
Pitcher's duel.
Pitcher's duel.
Yeah.
In the last inning. Bases loaded, 2 outs, and I'd already gone deep twice in the championship game. So all these older kids of the people on the team running behind the fence, thinking I'm going to end it. And I popped up to the pitcher, and we lost the game 24-23. And, of course, right after the game, they shook hands, and all the kids were down the right field line on our team getting juice boxes and Star Crunches and whatever. And, I mean, I was in the dugout bawling like a baby. And my mom said she remembered looking at my dad going, oh, my God, we are in trouble. And she just said, she couldn't believe how personal I took it. And I honestly, you don't remember a lot of things, I think, sometimes, but I still remember that feeling and sitting in that dugout.
I can honestly say my worst sports moment did not involve me hitting 2 home runs that day. It was, it didn't involve that. That's pretty good. Your worst moment is involving two home runs.
I still actually upstairs in the attic have the second place trophy from T-ball,
wow.
and it burns me.
Profound.
Yes.
Okay, so that takes me to the next question, which is around coaches, because you've talked a lot about coaches. And you've talked a lot about good coaches, so I'll stick with that for a minute.
Yeah.
Tell me, and you don't have to name names on this, but tell me who your best coach was and why. What made him just a great coach?
For me, my high school baseball coach, Hugh Buchanan, I have no problem saying his name because he meant the world to me. And he was a disciplinarian. So I made the varsity my freshman year, and we were going down to Miami to play Westminster and some of the high schools over spring break. And I had a bad BP, I guess, like 2 or 3 days before we went down, and so I kind of walked to right field, and he called me in, and as stern as he could, they said, you ever walk on my field again, you'll be down on that softball field on the 9th grade team, and this ticket to Miami will be ripped up. And he always did little things like that. And he would never get close with you while you played. And I always remember thinking, man, he won't open up. He won't let in. And then it was so funny. The state championship happens my senior year. We talked about that. And like the very next day, it was 2 days before the draft. We talked forever and still talk to this day. And it was like he was going to keep that professional relationship. But, man, he taught me so much about how to play the game the right way, how to respect the game, how to respect the other teams. I remember my freshman year, I had a home run and kind of pumped my fist around first base. I didn't think much of it. Well, he made me apologize to the coach after the game and the other thing. Old school, man. But just the way he went about treating people, it made you want to play hard, but also, he taught you so many things that were bigger than baseball.
Yeah, that's awesome. Flip side of that coin.
Yeah.
Tell me about, this is maybe the one where you don't want to name names.
Yeah,
or maybe you do, but tell us about a bad coach and what made him a bad coach.
Yeah. I had a coach that I didn't necessarily enjoy playing for, and the fact that it was one of those things that when things were going good, he loved you. And when you were struggling, I don't need you. And, the reason that stuck with me all the time was, my first manager in the big leagues, Bobby Cox, who I think is the greatest manager of all time, was the complete opposite of that. He almost loved you more when you stunk, knowing that you needed a little bit of support. He'd ask about your family, ask about this. It wasn't all just that. And I struggle with that because I'm a people person. I like to pour into people. I like to, feel it. And I was lied to in a couple certain situations too. And so it just kind of really turned me off. And then another instance for me is, like I said, I go back to when I was in Little League. And, just the way that you see, when my dad yanked me out, how it was ran, and just, like, man, 12 years old now. Like, 12 years old can figure out who's good and who's not. Yeah. When you're 6 and 7, I think kids are still feeling it out. They don't necessarily know if I bat 10th, I'm batting 10th because I'm batting 10th. And that always irked me because I'm the type of guy that I always hustled. I always did this, and I'm like, and you're going to do that, And same thing on the travel team right now. Like for me with softball, my daughter bats towards the bottom part of the lineup, and I always tell her keep working, and you can move yourself up. Yeah. But just because you're my daughter doesn't mean, if anything, I'm going to make it harder on her to move up than the other way. And so that always turned me off with a couple of the way the coaches handled it.
So that's great. Great input on coaching. As we kind of get to the end of our time here together, let's transition a little bit more into you being the parent now.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about, taking your lessons learned as a young athlete and, what kind of parent you want to be, not just as a coach, but even when somebody else is coaching your kid.
Yeah. I think the cool thing is now that I think about what sports was for me and what it did for me. And like we talked about, not just making it to the big leagues, but the lessons I learned. I sat in the high school football field with our defense coordinator and talked more about girl issues and school issues and stuff than we did about actually running a play. They poured into you so much. And so now I think about my kids. I'm like, I want my kids to have the experience that I did. I was lucky. I know not every kid that we're going to talk to during these is going to have a great experience. Not everyone's, but I did. I did have a good experience. And I want my kids to go out there and give everything they got. One thing I've tried to instill in them that my dad did, like I said, is whenever you're out there, you're giving it everything you got, and, it challenges us in the Bible, whatever you do the best of your ability. And so I want my kids to have that. And I want to be passionate about something. That's what I tell them. I'm like, look, I tell my son all the time, just because I play baseball, you don't have to play baseball. If golf and football are your two favorite sports, go do it. But when you do it, you're going to practice and you're going to try to be the best you can. So I think those are little things now that I think about it. And when someone else is coaching my kid, you want to know that they're out there with all the kids in mind. I think about that with the travel team, this girls' travel team I'm coaching. I'm like, same way. I think about someone else's daughter that's out there with me, and I'm like, they expect me to pour into her like I am my own daughter. And so I think those are the best coaches, that they know they're out there for everybody It's not just their daughter they're out there for. And that's one thing my dad was always so great at. If anything, he poured into some of the other guys more than he did me, especially at a young age, because they needed it more than I did.
Yeah. So how do you, as a parent who was a pro athlete, who's still very involved in the world of sports,
Yeah.
Whose kids are playing sports and you're loving it, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
How do you make sure that, that they know that as a parent, that their approval's not all based on sports?
Absolutely. My wife, we talk about this struggling all the time. Is it going to be tough for my boys as they play baseball? If they're not the best, well, that's Frank Core's son. He should do this. And I don't ever want them to feel that pressure. And I think it's what we talked about with Pure Athlete, and what it kind of represents is I want my kid to have the best experience in youth sports and in high school. Anything that happens after that, great. If that's their passion, if that's what they want to do, great. If not, I'm saving money right now for sending them to college. And if I don't, great. But the chances of that happening are slim, that every single one's going to be, some stud athlete. So I think, I want my kids to enjoy their time. And I think it's tough because I show up to the field sometimes and, opposing coach will be, oh, that's Frank Core's team. I want to crush them, and I'm like, look, at the end of the day, if we lose, I'm still going to go home and sleep well tonight and I'll be fine. It does not define who you are. And I think that's the biggest thing I want my kids to learn. Like, I want them to find value in sports. I want them to find life lessons, but I don't want it to define who they are. I want it to be a part of what they do, but not who they are.
That's super well said. So as we kind of wrap up, Jeff, there's one final question I haven't asked you, and I think you may have already touched on this, but tell me something that your parents did that you want to emulate with your kids.
The number one thing my parents did was giving us all the opportunity. And that no matter if look, I'm sure now that I'm a parent, I'm sure my parents looked at it from a standpoint of they knew, okay, Jeff might be more athletic than this and this, but they always gave us the same amount of time, the same opportunity to reach our dreams, whether that was in middle school, high school, pro. That's something my parents always gave us, was that opportunity. And I think, that's the one thing, like I said, my parents were both in education. And I know it costs a lot of money to do some of these places that we went in baseball, to Iowa and to Omaha and different stuff. It wasn't cheap, but they always provided and gave us that opportunity. And in return, look, we had to work, we had to play hard, we had to get good grades, we had to keep them up. There was a trade-off. And so I want my kids to kind of understand what we're doing, and I hope to do it half the job my mom and dad did for me.
So Jeff, that I think brings us to the end of the questions I had today. Thanks so much for sharing your story with us. And with that, any final words?
Well, thank you for interviewing me today and doing this. It was fun, but what I'm looking forward to is being able to do this with other athletes and letting everybody see a side of different stories. You heard my story today. There's tons more of people that did things different and got to the same place, or they had good experiences, bad experiences. And, as we talked about it, this is why I'm excited to be with Pure Athlete, because I kind of shared some stories about my childhood growing up and now how I'm trying to coach my kids. And there's numerous things that I know I'm going to be able to learn along this journey that's going to help me guide my kids as they go, and not just sports, but in school and life. And, I think it's going to be a lot of fun for us as we go forward to talk to these athletes, talk to, people in different positions, like we said, and all the things we can cover in Pure Athletes. So I think it's going to be a fun ride, and buckle up.
Great.
Sounds great.
Hey guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for checking out Pure Athlete, and subscribe to our channel on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you go to listen to our podcast.